When people talk about the classic era of Final Fantasy, especially the first 6 games later revived through the Pixel Remaster line, one title almost always sparks debate: Final Fantasy II. Often labeled the black sheep of the 8-bit era, it stands apart in ways that are bold, ambitious, and deeply flawed. With the release of Final Fantasy II Pixel Remaster, modern players finally received a refined version of this divisive sequel. Updated pixel art, a beautifully rearranged soundtrack supervised by Nobuo Uematsu, quality of life boosts, and rebalanced stat growth smooth out many of the frustrating mechanics from the original Famicom release. The Pixel Remaster fixes much of what once felt game-breaking. The unconventional stat system, where HP grew from taking damage and spells improved only through repeated use, has been carefully tuned. Growth is more stable. Exploits like attacking your own party members to grind durability are no longer necessary. Weapon leveling feels less punishing. The system is still unique. No traditional levels like in Final Fantasy, but it's no longer brutally unbalanced, and that allows the real strength of the game to shine. Because the story in Final Fantasy II is genuinely one of the strongest in the entire Pixel era. The game opens with devastation. Furion, Maria, Guy, and Leon lose their parents and their home to the Palametian Empire. Within minutes, they're cut down by Imperial soldiers. This isn't a tale about destiny and crystals. It's about war, resistance, survival. You join a rebel army fighting Emperor Matthias, whose forces systematically conquer the world. Towns are destroyed. Nations collapse. Allies fall in battle. The revolving fourth party member becomes a powerful storytelling device. Characters join your cause, form bonds, and many of them sacrifice themselves. Minwu, Joseph, Ricard, their deaths aren't minor plot points. They are emotional turning points. And when the Emperor is finally defeated, the story doesn't stop there. He conquers hell itself and returns even more powerful, escalating the stakes into something mythic and operatic. For an 8-bit RPG in 1988, this was groundbreaking storytelling, and it came at a technical cost. Final Fantasy II pushed the Famicom, known in the West as a Nintendo Entertainment System, to its limits. The development team at Square dramatically increased the cartridge size compared to the first game to fit more dialogue, more unique maps, more enemy data, and a significantly larger soundtrack. Memory was tight. Every line of text had to be compressed carefully. Character sprites were reused strategically. Data tables for the complex stat growth system had to be optimized to fit within cartridge constraints. The keyword memory system, which allowed players to learn terms in conversation and use them in later dialogue, required additional scripting logic rarely seen on the NES at the time. Under the leadership of Hironobu Sakaguchi, the team made a conscious decision to prioritize narrative ambition over simplicity. Battle designer Akitoshi Kawazu pushed the experimental growth mechanics. The writers expanded the script dramatically compared to the first game. And composer Nobuo Uematsu delivered a larger and more varied soundtrack than Final Fantasy I. That's another area where 2 stands out: music. There is noticeably more musical variety here than in the first game. Distinct rebel themes, imperial marches, emotional character motifs, darker dungeon tracks. Uematsu expanded his melodic range, helping give the world emotional identity. Tracks like the Rebel Army theme carry a sense of defiance and tragedy that perfectly matches the tone. The sequel didn't just expand mechanically, it expanded artistically. Now, fast forward to 2007 and the release of Final Fantasy II on the PlayStation Portable. Unlike the Pixel Remaster, which focuses on preserving the original version with refinements, the PSP edition was built to highlight the story even more. It included the Soul of Rebirth scenario first introduced in the Game Boy Advance version, a post-game chapter where you control fallen characters like Minwu and Joseph in the afterlife. The reason that version exists and why fans praise it is because it expands the emotional closure. It gives those sacrifices meaning beyond shock value. It allows players to see the fallen heroes fight one last battle. The PSP release featured enhanced visuals, animated cutscenes, and a more dramatic presentation, all designed to emphasize the narrative weight that defines Final Fantasy II. However, that extra story content is not included in the Pixel Remaster, which stays closer to the original 1988 structure. Historically, the game sold well in Japan upon release, but Western players didn't receive it for years. Instead, North America jumped from Final Fantasy I to what was actually Final Fantasy IV under a renumbered title. The real Final Fantasy II wouldn't officially arrive in the West until the PlayStation era, long after mechanics felt dated. And yet, despite its flaws, it remains one of the most important entries in the franchise's early history. Yes, its progression system is controversial. Yes, it experimented in ways that didn't fully succeed. Yes, it's often called the black sheep, but it was fearless. It pushed the NES hardware further than its predecessor. It expanded the cartridge to fit a deeper script. It delivered more music. It embraced character depth. It made the story personal. If you want to experience the moment Final Fantasy evolved from a simple fantasy adventure into a character-driven epic about sacrifice and rebellion, this is a game to play. The Pixel Remaster makes it more balanced and accessible than ever. Final Fantasy II may be the black sheep of the Pixel era, but it's also the bold experiment that gave the series its emotional backbone.